Hello students, so we are back again with the second part of your science chapter for class 4, that is how plants make food. So in the last class we have discussed how plants make food. So I hope you remember the plants make their food with the help of what? Water, carbon dioxide, then sunlight and chlorophyll. So what is chlorophyll? Chlorophyll is the green color pigment which is present on the leaves, and the process by which the plants make food is called photosynthesis. So again we also discussed that after the process of photosynthesis, what is the outproduct? That is, the plants make starch. The plants gives out oxygen gas, and they make the food in the form of sugar. So after the entire process of photosynthesis, what is released is sugar as well as oxygen gas. And this the plant, after using the food, they store the excess food in the form of starch in the various parts like roots, stems, leaves, flowers, fruits and seeds. Now today we will be discussing about certain plants which do not make their own food. So there are some plants, they do not make their own food. Like first we will be discussing about total parasite. Some plants are called total parasites because they do not make their own food, or they cannot make their own food, but they depend on other plants for their food. So total parasites totally depend on other plants for the food and water, and they grow on some other plants and they use the food and water of that host plant. Host plant I am saying, that is the plant on which the total parasite is growing. That becomes your host plant. So they take whatever food or water the host plant is making. So total parasites, they grow on the host plant and they take the food of the host plant. And as a result, what happens? The host plant dies. So the host plant is not getting the proper amount of food and water, because the food and water, maximum amount of food and water is taken away or absorbed by the total parasite. So the total parasite thereby kills the host plant. So examples of total parasites are dodder plant. So dodder plant, now why dodder plant is called a total parasite? Dodder plant is a plant which does not contain any chlorophyll. It does not have any chlorophyll pigment. So it cannot make its own food. As a result, it has to depend on some other plant for its food. So dodder plant, it grows on some other plant and it takes food and water and all nourishment from that plant, and as a result that plant is killed by the dodder plant. So such type of plants that grow on other plants for food and water are known as total parasites. The next type of plant that do not make its own food are partial parasites. Now there is a difference between total parasite and partial parasite. Total parasite are those plants which cannot make their own food because they lack in chlorophyll. But partial parasites are those plants which contains chlorophyll, and it can make their own food, but it depends on the host plant for the water and certain nutrients. So partial parasites are those plants which contains chlorophyll and they can make their own food, but for the water and other nutrients they depend on the host plant. For example, mistletoe Mistletoe is a kind of a total parasite. So it mostly grows, mistletoe is a kind of a partial parasite, and it mostly grows on plants like mango and chiku. So what do these plants do? They contain chlorophyll, so they are able to make their own food, but they get water and other nutrients from the mango plant, the mango tree or the chiku tree on which it is growing. So these are the two types of plants which do not make food. They are known as, one type is known as partial parasite and the other is known as total parasite. So what are the difference? What are the difference between total parasite and partial parasite? Total parasites do not contain chlorophyll, and so they cannot make their own food, and they depend on other plant for the food and water, thereby they kill the plant on which they grow. For example, it is the dodder plant. And in case of partial parasite, what happens? Partial parasite contains chlorophyll, they can make their own food, but they depend on other plant for the water and certain other nutrients. For example, it is mistletoe. So I hope the difference between total and partial parasite is clear to you. So next we will move on to another type of plant which does not make its own food, or you can say they are able to make their own food, but they feed on animals. So plants that feed on other animals. So there are certain plants, they feed on other animals, and such type of plants are known as insectivorous plants or carnivorous plants. So examples, some plants which feed on other animals are pitcher plant, Venus flytrap, sundew. All these are examples of insectivorous or you can say carnivorous plant. So now we will be discussing about the pitcher plant. So pitcher plant is a type of insectivorous plant. Though the pitcher plant is green in color, that is, it contains chlorophyll, it can make its own food, but again for certain nutrients it traps small insects and have it as their food. So pitcher plant, in a pitcher plant you will see a pitcher like pot, a pot like structure. You can see in the picture a pot like structure is there which is known as the pitcher. So from the leaf, now the petiole of the leaf, the pitcher comes out, or the pot like structure comes out. Now this pitcher contains nectar. The nectar attracts the insects. The insects are attracted by the nectar. Now once the insects enter into the pitcher, there are tiny hair-like structures on the surface of the pitcher. When the insect enters when the insect is attracted by the nectar and it enters the pitcher, the hair-like structures, it gets disturbed, and when it is disturbed, what happens? There is a leaf-like lid on the top of the pitcher which closes, or you can say the hair-like structures, when it gets disturbed by the insect, it triggers the leaf-like structure of the pitcher to close. As the result, the insect is trapped inside, and after the insect is trapped inside, what do the pitcher plant do? The pitcher secretes the juices from the secretes some juices to digest the insect. Next we have the Venus flytrap. So in case of Venus flytrap, the Venus flytraps, as you can see in the picture, the leaves they look like flowers and there are spine-like structures on the leaves. So when the insects comes and sit on this leaves, what happens? The two leaves closes, and as the result the insect is trapped inside the plant. So this is how again the Venus flytrap traps insect and it feeds on the insect. So these two examples we'll be studying about plants that feed on animals. One is pitcher plant and the other is Venus flytrap. So I've told you that though pitcher plant and Venus flytrap, they feed on insects, but these plants can make their own food also with the help of chlorophyll which is present in their leaves. So next we will be discussing on the topic living things depends on each other. So if you see in the nature, both plants and animals are interdependent on each other. Without one or in the absence of one, the other cannot survive. So we can say that plants and animals depend on each other for their survival. Like animals depends on plants for various purpose, like for food and shelter. So like animals, they especially those herbivorous and omnivorous animals, what do? They eat plants. Again, you will see in the forest, the plants provide shelter to the animals. Again, even we for building our house, we depend on plants because we get the wood from the plants. Again, most of our food also comes from the plants. They also depend on plants, that is animals also depend on plants for the supply of oxygen. Can you imagine a world without plants? Will we human beings or other animals, will they be able to survive? No, because there will be no oxygen. There will be no oxygen and all will die. So we human beings or other animals, we depend solely on the plants for the supply of oxygen. And supply of oxygen which is produced by the plants during the process of photosynthesis. Next again on the other side, if we see, plants also depend on animals. So plants depend on animals for the various needs. One of the basic need is for the carbon dioxide gas, which is exhaled by the animals or which is breathed out by the animals. So plants need this carbon dioxide gas to prepare their food. So in the process of photosynthesis, plants need the carbon dioxide gas which is exhaled by the animals. Again, plants depend on animals for the dispersal of their seeds. So certain seeds of the plants are at times like they get stuck into the animal's body, or even birds, or we humans, we throw the seeds of the plants here and there. So animals help plants for dispersing their seeds. So hence we can see there is an interdependence, or both plants and animals are dependent on each other, and this interdependence between the plant kingdom and the animal kingdom maintains a balance in the nature. So I hope till here it's clear to you. With this the chapter is over. So next class we will be starting a new chapter. So I'll be giving you some questions. So here are the questions.